This is WBSM On Demand.
Good morning. Good morning. So we were talking about the drones over New Jersey, and what do we think of that? What do we think it is? There is a report that they are from a congressman in New Jersey that they are Chinese funded, flown off an Iranian ship. It's a pretty wild story. Pretty wild story. I tell you what. If you're a God-fearing American, and I certainly am, it's probably time to get a gun, right? First, you got to get a permit. Take the class, all that. You can do that at Shooting Supply right in Westport. Then after you get the permit, you can go out and get a gun. I'd head right to Shooting Supply now if you already have the permit for great specials like this. Select remodeling equipment, reloading equipment, right? Reloading equipment, 50% off. Reloading is easy. They can show you how to do it at Shooting Supply. They also have 9mm ammo, starts at just $11.99 a box, $2.39 a case. Save with an amazing rebate on Smith & Wesson guns. The rebate from Smith & Wesson is up to $150. They have Colt rebates up to $100. Check out the number one selling gun in the country. That's the Sig Sauer P365. Remember that Shooting Supply has gift certificates. You don't need an FID card or a gun license to buy a gift card from Shooting Supply. They make a perfect gift for that sportsman in your life. Check out more specials at shootingsupply.com. Shooting Supply is located on Route 6 in Westport. Great store. Great Americans out there. They'll help you out. We're now joined here in studio, just take a seat, by Chris Markey, Democrat, still a Democrat?
I am.
He says sheepishly, I'm still a Democrat.
No, I wasn't close to the microphone.
Oh, all right. So that wasn't bashfulness. You were just not close to the microphone.
Correct.
Counselor, how's your day going?
Good. Busy.
You are a former prosecutor. You're now the representative from Dartmouth and New Bedford. What do you make of some of the cases that are in the public eye? You did a lot with us with Karen Reed. We appreciated your expertise on that. Chris, what do you make of the acquittal of the young Marine who used a submission hold, as Bob Dylan said, used a little too much force, right? And someone's death, someone died. An aggressive homeless person died. What do you make of that case? He was acquitted.
Initially I was surprised he was charged.
Okay.
So the acquittal does not surprise me. In the process that, people get upset, oh my gosh, he was charged, he did this. The process worked.
Okay.
I know he had to go through all of that, but both sides do, and someone's going to, the instant reaction is someone's going to be held accountable for someone's death. That's not always the case in the criminal world.
Okay.
There's this fundamental principle called mens rea, that there's some type of criminal intent. Sometimes it's recklessness, sometimes it's negligence, sometimes it's specific intent, sometimes it's general intent, depending on the crime. But there needs to be some degree of that. I don't think you saw any of that from at least the videos I saw. And I think in the end, the right decision was made.
But the district attorney down there, Alvin Bragg, who's been in the papers a lot because he indicted the president, but that case aside, he had a decision whether or not he prosecuted, right? Here?
Yes.
And he chose to prosecute.
He did. And some people think, okay, I'm going to prosecute it. I mean, I'm sure there was political pressure during that time and what should happen. But you hope that, again, the tools are there to do the right thing. And it's the people you put in to do the right thing. And that's what you hope, is that the responsibilities of the people who are either elected or appointed have the ability to do these things. And it's just a matter of appointing the right or electing the right people.
Chris Markey, if you were you'll never move to Manhattan to become the DA, but if you were the DA in Manhattan or say, well, you were assistant prosecutor here in Bristol County, if that case had been under your purview, would you have charged?
Again, I don't know everything.
I get that.
It's really hard to make that decision. Right. But from what I saw, and again, I didn't see everything, I think it's a difficult case to pursue in light of the fact that the standard is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And again, the process works. I mean, my old boss used to say that all the time, that the process itself is sometimes the punishment.
Yes.
And that's probably what happened here is maybe he did go a little bit over, but the sad part is like, who's going to go out and try to protect people in the future when these things happen?
Right. And that's the dangerous thing of prosecuting someone who acts without criminal intent to defend the public.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So you'd have to weigh that, right?
Yeah, I think you do. And you with every case, you weigh it and figure out, can I prove it? Is it worth it? And you have that discretion as a prosecutor.
We have Chris Markey here in studio. Chris, what do you make of this young man who allegedly now assassinated the head of United Healthcare? I mean, it's such a tragic case as it unfolds all the way around, obviously for the victim and his family. But the alleged perpetrator, he seems like he had everything going for him.
Yeah, it seems
that way. He snapped, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he snapped.
Okay.
I mean, I think when we use the word snapped is someone instantaneously does something that's not
that's
thoughtful
important.
and
Talk
doing
about that,
everything. And here's a guy who deliberated for some period of time. He positioned himself after making a series of decisions, starting with being in New York 10 days before, or at least 7 days before the incident, going to extremes to attempt to hide his identity with masks and things like that. I don't know if there's any indication that he was wearing masks before, and he's just one of the people who believe that you can wear a mask in public and all of that. I don't know.
I see that, yep.
But I'm sure that evidence will show what it was, and it didn't seem like he was someone who was looking to hide his identity throughout much of his life. He seemed like he was, from the photographs, he's kind of a vain guy.
Right.
And so those types of things, and then laying in wait, and then a silencer, putting together a gun that's a ghost gun, and taking all the parts and assembling it, writing on the projectiles, the information. What is it? Deny, depose.
Yes, a couple of statements. Yeah. So
those types of things. Those are all indicative of someone who is. Has deliberated, has premeditated, and has acted on it. So I don't necessarily think it was like an instant snap.
Okay.
But clearly he's misfocused on everything.
Sure.
And quite frankly, that seems like the way, to some degree society is now, is that we don't rationally talk about things.
Right.
Where we just find opponents and then we try to tear them down no matter what. We can never be, it's that, what about you? What about them? Where you bring up a point, for instance, you and I talk and you bring up a Trump thing, or I bring up something about Trump and you go, well, what about your guy? And
with all the money from the Chinese communists, just because you brought it up.
Yeah, and well, I don't know, but Jared Kushner did pretty well after the presidency. So, all of those things are things that what if, what about, right. And we need to stop it. It's just ridiculous.
Chris, you're a defense attorney. You practice here in the area. If that was your client, how would you, given what we know, what's in the public domain, how would you defend him?
Well, at first you got to get everything and figure out,
Right.
and then see where there's any cracks.
Right.
I assume they have a cell phone. I assume from the way this guy operated, he had a cell phone because he ended up using electric bike that he had to rent. So I assume he wandered his phone over the thing and and got that. So that puts him there. I understood that there's some fingerprint evidence that puts him at the scene. The videotape testimony will be pretty impressive. They'll show him where he went up until the point of Central Park. So there's a whole, all the forensics will be there. And then if, it's overwhelming evidence that he's there and he had the intent and there's some documentation, writings of his, I would try, I guess, the lack of criminal responsibility, which I think would be very difficult to be able to sustain as a legitimate defense in this case because of all the thoughtfulness that went behind it. And you could say that he didn't appreciate what he was doing, but it sounds like he did appreciate it with some of the writings and understand that. So it's I think it's a difficult case to defend, but that's your job. You try to find a way.
Right. We have Chris Markey here in studio. Chris, you and I were wondering this together, talking about it off the air. I don't know if I don't believe New York's a death penalty state.
I don't think it is.
I don't think it is. Do you see, again, anywhere where the federal government could reach in and make this a federal case, then use the federal death penalty statute?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think there's enough.
The mayor, the mayor couldn't. Yes, he didn't really think so either. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think there would be. Again, what's the death penalty? I think this is a kid who went to a private school, had all the luxuries of life.
Oh yeah.
The best penalty is for him to be in jail without parole.
He has no idea.
And that's the best thing that can happen for a punishment on this. A long, horrible life in jail.
And it's going to be horrible.
Yeah.
It's going to be horrible. When you look at that kid's upbringing, $40,000 a year, private high school, Ivy League colleges, living in Hawaii. He's got no idea what prison's going to be like.
Yeah, and as a parent, you look at it and go, God, we did everything we could.
Right.
What happened?
Right.
It's, the whole thing's sad.
That's what I say. It's very sad. That poor man's family who was assassinated, his kids don't have a dad anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, really unfortunate. Chris, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll get to the phones. If you want to speak with Chris Markey about some of these cases, what's been going on lately in the country, he's a former prosecutor and currently a defense attorney. Stick around. We'll be right back. McCarthy, hey, rediscover South Dartmouth's heritage grain and hardware store, M&M Hay and Feed. Formerly Marvin Grain, M&M continues to offer the mom-and-pop shop experience. From hard-to-find brand-name pet foods, grain by the pound. My understanding it's the only place you can still get grain by the pound, or just some nuts and bolts. They got a great hardware store there. Michelle, Mark, Michael, and Gary can help you out when you go to M&M Hay and Feed. They still have hay, straw, screen repair, and yes, laying chickens, meat chickens, and turkeys. You'll find whatever your farm and garden needs are at M&M Hay and Feed, a great Dartmouth business. If they don't have it, you don't need it. Call or visit M&M Hay and Feed, an old school store, 31 Cove Road in the great town of Dartmouth. They're an authorized dealer of Poulin grain. Chris, that's your district.
Yeah, it's a great spot.
It's a great spot, right?
It's gone there a few times, and although I don't have any pets,
You don't have pets, but you eat pets. Not other people's
right,
pets.
I'm a Democrat.
You are
I
a
forgot
Democrat.
about that.
Hide your dogs. Chris Markey's here.
I should have known better.
You walked right into it. But you've done a lot with agriculture in Dartmouth.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know it's a popular place and it's a good place. And again, they do, like you said, throw in all of that grain and all of that, then they do have the nuts and bolts and all the tools you need or whatever you need there. Good spot.
Good spot. We're going to go to the phones. Good morning. Thanks for calling. You're on with Chris Markey.
Hey, guys. How you doing? How you doing, Chris?
Good.
I actually had a question, something that's been not bugging me, but just sitting on my mind in regards to the New York case and Daniel Penny. It was a hung jury, or it was a jury in the beginning when they started deliberating. I guess there was one holdout from all the acquittals that wanted to charge him or wanted to vote to find him guilty. And then when they dropped the more severe charge to, I guess, just manslaughter or negligent homicide, they all voted for acquittal. How do you come to that conclusion where, from a juror's perspective, go from he's guilty to not guilty on a lesser charge?
One of the things I can say is I can never understand a jury totally. You never know what goes on in there and how people's thought processes are. But it does, the idea that they got rid of the higher charge, I would think maybe they realized, hey, you know what? The prosecutor doesn't even believe in his case anymore. They're reducing it down. We're not even going to be able to answer to that question. So just forget about it all. I mean, that could be as simple as that. I don't know. But
yeah, it kind of baffled my mind. I was like,
I think the move by the prosecutor was that it kind of took away from their credibility of the case and their belief in the case. Maybe that's what it was.
All right, yeah, that's a good clarification. Yeah, I was just wondering, coming from your perspective, in the prosecutor's seat, I was just wondering what your idea was. But yeah,
former prosecutor,
former prosecutor,
current great state representative. So,
oh, thanks.
Even though you probably eat cats and dogs.
Ray, you used to eat cats and dogs. You're a Democrat.
They're good, only medium rare.
All right.
And only the Chihuahuas.
Yeah.
All right, take care, guys.
Thank you. That's the favorite breed of Hank Turgeon, the Chihuahua.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Not for eating. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what goes on over there. Chris, you were really important to us for understanding the Karen Reed trial. That's the woman in Norfolk County who was tried for vehicular homicide, I believe, maybe second-degree murder. Catch us up on that case, Chris.
Sure. So there's a new special prosecutor on the case, Hank Brennan, who's a very experienced lawyer, very good lawyer.
He represented Whitey Bulger.
Yeah, and he's an honorable guy.
Yeah,
so it'll be really interesting to see how the case progresses on that. Then, since then, I think he has sought evidence that was not sought before in regard to communications between Karen Reed, her parents. I believe the motion was denied last week or the week before, so I don't think they can have access to that unless the Commonwealth appeals.
Okay.
But it looks like he's trying to turn every stone and figure out if there's enough evidence to go forward. I would think that after a complete evaluation of it, that there, again, this is speculation for me, but I don't know if there's really a murder charge there. I've been saying it all along.
You have been saying that all along.
I just don't know. And if he can focus on the incident itself and keep it focused on leaving the scene, causing death and a motor vehicle homicide, I think it cuts down all the extra stuff and it focuses on the real facts of the case. Is did she strike him or not? And I think it's pretty clear, I think, from everything that I don't think she ever intended to hit him.
Okay.
I think that's a fair assessment of it. Now,
you and I assumed, or you assumed, I'm just thinking about conversations on and off the air, that they had some sort of text messages indicating that she was glad she hit him or something like that they did not have.
Yeah.
And that's the reason. So we were surprised when nothing like that came out in the trial.
Yes. And I think when you look at what they based the murder on is these arguments that happen like in Mexico or Aruba or something, someplace like that, and then her behavior after the death. And she's actually calling to say, call me back, I got the kids, all of these things that would suggest, and it seemed that it was clearly emotional. It seemed there was some honesty to the emotion, even if it was kind of ugly in the words she used and all that. I just find it hard to believe that she would do that, knowing that he's lying on the front lawn.
Right.
That's what's troubling. But I mean, the other side of it is the injuries are not consistent with what the Commonwealth's position was.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they did a very good job of articulating what probably happened. Is he could have been bent over, cracked his head, dazed and confused. He didn't go flying in the air and do a pirouette or whatever the heck that guy said.
Right.
And then, so he's dazed and confused. It's dark out. It's snowing. It's cold. He only has a light sweatshirt on.
He's been drinking.
And he's been drinking, and he just passes out right there.
Right.
And then dies from that. I don't know. But it's clear he did have a head injury. It's clear that you can believe that they manufactured all of these things, I guess, but I think if you kept it simple, had it as a 10-witness case, and you stuck to the motor vehicle homicide leaving the scene, I think you could pull off a guilty. But if you throw in all this other stuff and drag it out, I don't think there's much there.
And you're explaining that Hank Brennan has been brought in to re-examine the case?
Well, he's to prosecute the case.
Okay.
But if there's communications between Karen Reed and her parents saying she knew she hit him, that's all they need. I mean, like in my mind,
yes.
If I'm the prosecutor, all I want to do is prove a motor vehicle homicide and the leaving the scene causing death. I think the world would be satisfied that someone could be accountable for that.
Okay.
I think if you're trying to go too far as a second-degree murder, when I don't think there's anything, unless, again, there's more out there that's somewhere, but I haven't seen it yet.
Speaking of motor vehicles, it's the good time to get that crack in your windshield repaired. You don't want to have a crack in your windshield. Yesterday we got all that rain, right? And now today it's very cold. So you don't want to have a cracked windshield. So it's very easy to fix it, all right? Just call Citywide Glass, and they'll have it repaired in no time at all. All insurance is accepted, so it likely won't cost you anything. No money out of your pocket to fix your windshield, I can guarantee that. They'll send the mobile tech team right up to your house or to your work, home or office, and they'll repair it for you in no time at all. They're just a phone call away. Call them in Dartmouth, call them in Fall River, Citywide Glass, or you can go on their website and make an appointment, citywideglass.net. It's not safe to have a cracked windshield or any cracked glass, and they can fix it all at Citywide Glass. In the winter, you got to get it fixed, okay? They'll repair door windows, mirrors, truck sliders, sunroofs, and more. Call Citywide Glass. Contact them on the internet, citywideglass.net, or call them in Fall River, or call them in Dartmouth. Chris, the situation with Karen Reed, how much longer do you think it'll go before it comes to trial?
I think the trial date's scheduled for April.
Okay.
Right at the end of April. So we'll see.
What should we expect? It'll be different than the last time, you think?
I think it's going to be more condensed. I think they're going to focus on what happened that night and not on all the drama that what happens in Canton, Massachusetts, which is insanity.
So you think it'll be like everybody will tune in and then on day 3 the TV cameras will pull out?
No. Everyone's going to watch the whole thing, but I don't think it's going to be an 8-week trial. That's just, again, my thought of it is I think they're going to focus on what they can prove and not just throw up everything and see what happens.
Chris Markey, of course, was a prosecutor here in Bristol County. He's assistant district attorney. Now he's a defense attorney. Let's go to the phones. Good morning. Thanks for holding.
Hello, Chris.
Hello.
Representative Markey. A question. in the last time you were interviewed on this show, you were discussing this new gun law, and you kind of said something to the effect, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the gun owners will have to take this to court and square it all the way there. Keep in mind that estimated court costs could run over $2.5 million to challenge this new law in court. Isn't the process becomes the punishment? And one other thing I want you to comment on is Elizabeth Warren, our senator, on a talk show, kind of indicated that the shooting of the CEO in New York, she didn't come right out and say it was justified, but she kind of said, well, I can understand when people lose their cools, kind of giving a lifeline to him. And I'll let you answer those two questions. I appreciate you guys taking my call. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.
You too.
Thanks.
Thank you, my friend.
Let me just say this: if it's a $2.5 million fee for handling the gun case, I'll do it for half.
Okay.
All right. I'll do it for $1 million, without a doubt. I don't think it'd be that much, but I do think that there's going to be specific areas in which people have standing to fight those things. And I think that they're as with everything, then we start dealing with constitutional rights, they're often challenged, whether it be free speech, whether it be abortion, whether it be interstate commerce. It's ultimately the courts who are going to make those interpretations. And I think that that's what's going to happen here, is that there may be things that have gone too far, and there may be things that are stay affirmed. But I don't think it's going to be $2.5 million to be able to challenge it. On the Elizabeth Warren thing, it's incredibly disappointing that she'd say something like that.
Yes.
This is the world, like I said earlier, that we're living in. And then I think she tried to reel back from some of that, but the reality is it came out, and it's exactly the type of thing when I look at it as this is the justification of the January 6 people, where, we got pushed too far, the progressives went too far, and it's a botched. Granted, my position is it's premised on falsehoods.
Yes.
On the January 6 stuff, so it's a little bit different, but that's their attempted justification for it. And there is no justification for this. There's absolutely none. So this is where my old boss used to say this too, is that we're lawyers, we're wordsmiths. Mm-hmm. She's a lawyer, she's bright.
Right.
You have to be careful of what you say, especially in those positions. And I hope that people don't take it that way, but I was deeply disappointed in it. And I think we need to really worry about what we say. I think that's why we're here, is because people say a lot of things that almost justifies
homicide.
Yeah, well, that just stupidity. Like it's just, and I don't think she meant to say it was justified, but the idea that it can be used in that fashion now is the problem. It's not what I don't think she meant, but the fact is you put on Fox, and I'm sure last night they talked about it all night, and they're talking about, and instead of talking about the real issues that matter to people, is, we need to do a better job all the way around.
But I think Liz Warren, as you point out, is bright, and she's been in politics a long time. I think she was just throwing a meaty bone, to her left-wing radical base. Yeah,
but
who supports this kid?
But what I'm trying to say is the right does that all the time. You do that. They do that all the time. And what we have to do is say no to that and really focus on the facts. If we want to win, we got to, one, get back to common sense in our policies. Two, we just got to start communicating with real people who, one, work, show up, pay taxes, and be accountable to them. And I think that's one of the things that, as a Democrat, we need to reflect on and get better at.
So you're still going to stick with the Democrat Party?
Yeah, I do. I'm going to change it.
You're going to change it?
I'm going to bring it back to the middle.
He's going to bring it back.
One-man show.
A one-man show to the party that you'll be like Trump. It'll be Trump and Markey. Markey will be in charge of the Democrats, and Trump will be in charge of the country.
Don't put those two things together.
Santa Claus is coming back to WBSM. Are you excited, Chris? His helpers at New Bedford's, these guys are great Americans and gals, the New Bedford Fire Union Local 841 have once again made arrangements for Santa to fly his sleigh to WBSM so he can be on the radio and take phone calls from all the good little boys and girls across the South Coast. This year, the big guy will be here for 2 full hours. Tune in on Friday, December 13th, beginning at 7 p.m. so all the children can call in and tell Santa what they want for Christmas. I was here when Santa came last year. It's a great, great, great show. The kids have a great time. That's Friday, December 13th, beginning at 7 p.m. as Santa Claus will be taking your calls right here on WBSM. Thanks to those great Americans at the New Bedford Fire Union, Local 841. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. With Chris Markey. Chris Markey's here in the studio with us. Good morning. I'm Chris McCarthy, and just joining us. So, Chris, the ongoing saga of the illegal migrants, the legal migrants, the various incarnations, people who are on the dole, though, here in Massachusetts in the shelter system. There's been some changes made to it. What can you tell us?
Well, I think initially it was they could stay for as long as they want. Last summer we changed it to being 9 months with the ability to reapply for, I think, a 90-day period. And then most recently, Governor Healy has determined that people can only stay for 6 months within the shelter. Well, that's a good start to it all, or moving another step towards it, but we really need to control the costs of all of this. Mm-hmm. And one way of doing it is to not become the beacon, to have a place, especially over the next 4 years, where it's not going to be equally distributed through the states. If we continue to provide all of these services, we can't afford it.
Right.
We simply cannot afford it. So it's not like, everybody wants a bigger house or a nicer car. If you can't afford it, you can't do it.
Right.
And how do we do it primarily for the intended use when they introduced the law in 1978? And it was intended to be an emergency shelter for people who have, had a fire in their house, had the victim of domestic violence, or something like that. And families, it's not individual. So it's not like there's a 30-year-old individual male going in there and doing that. There's a whole it's a set of requirements, and one being that it has to be a family. So that's one aspect to it that I think people don't understand. And the other part is these are individuals who have at least checked in with Homeland Security, and when they came across the border and they didn't sneak in under a fence, and that's it. So in that respect, that there is there's a process in place. However, I do think that we need to put some type of residency requirement at the front end as well.
Do you think that the governor will really use state resources to defend people who aren't supposed to be here from being deported? Do you think there'll be a showdown in Massachusetts?
I don't think so. I think the thing that is really important to understand on that is you need as many arrows in your quiver when you're in whether the military, the law enforcement, the judicial system, education. You need to have the availability of all options. And the idea of this concept, and again, I don't even know exactly what it is as a sanctuary state. We just labeled something.
Right.
But what's the real definition of it? We can't have that. We can't have what happens if the policy is and the law is you cannot help the federal government execute any type of deportation. Well, what happens when there's a crisis? Does that mean the state police turn around and walk away and go, well, we can't do it. It's against the law for us to do it.
Right.
I'm not saying that the local police and the state police go out and actively seek individuals. They're not trained for it. We
Right.
don't have the resources for it. We don't have the ability to do it.
Right.
But if the federal government comes in and says, we need your assistance to do this,
Right.
we need to be able to do that. Now, can you always do it? No. But why are we even putting it as a blanket statement and falling into that category? I don't think even the most ardent people who want every person who's not documented out of this country or not legally here
Right.
at the moment would agree that we shouldn't have everyone going door to door and pulling out people.
Right.
I think that
It's inefficient.
90%. It is. It's just, it's not the way to do it. You're going to end up doing things that are not appropriate. The question is when they need our help, can we be there? And we need to have that tool or that arrow in the quiver to make sure that happens.
When the feds need our help, the state, we
Yeah.
got to be there for them.
Yeah, and the same thing. The feds need to be there for us at a state level.
Yes.
Just as we at the state level try to be there for the local level. And it works that way.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We have Chris Markey here in the studio, Democrat, lifelong Democrat. Not cat eater, though. Not a cat eater.
No. Not a pet eater.
Not a pet eater. Studio. Chris, what do you make of those drones over New Jersey?
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't know much about it, and I watched a little bit a segment on it last night.
Mm-hmm.
I have no clue. And the idea that we don't have an answer is troubling.
Yes.
At both the state level, the local level, and the federal level. Like, something's got to come.
I was
And it better
speaking.
come pretty quickly.
Let's tell my audience, I was speaking with a woman yesterday afternoon who lives in that area. And she said to me, and she's not maniacal about it, but she says it's really disturbing to have these drones overhead. The local government doesn't know. But when, in your experience, Chris, we have a lot of military installations here in Massachusetts. When does the federal government, when are they obliged to tell us what's really going on?
Well, I think at some level